Joining us tonight to talk about where the impeachment may go from here is One Rider Party List Representative Rodge Gutierrez, who is part of the 11-member House Prosecution Panel. Good evening, Congressman. Welcome to the big story.
Hi, good evening, Bob. And glad to be here. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for finally accepting our invite. We're happy to have you. First thing I want to ask you is, since I just mentioned the prosecution panel, first thing I wanted to ask you was how you got chosen for that panel. I mean, I know you've already held a press conference and said that you didn't volunteer, but what was your best guess as to why you were chosen for this?
As with most of the prosecuting panel, I guess the criteria that was involved would be first and foremost being members of the bar, and then additionally would be any related experience to this case, in which case it'd be impeachment. And lastly, I think would be at least some relevant experience with our committee hearings, because that would be the basis. It's a big chunk of the basis of the complaint. So although there's no definite criteria, I guess I'd go wager that would be the criteria that they used.
Did you know that you were being nominated for it? Or Congressman Joel Chua, for instance, told us that he found out when his name was announced in plenary. Was it like that for you too?
No, I can't speak for the experience, but in my case, I heard about it prior, although not an official communication.
So unofficially, you heard that it might happen, and then sa plenary it got confirmed. Is that how it went?
Well, unofficial would be a stretch. It was actually a joke, so I really wouldn't know if that was
It started as a joke. Okay.
anywhere near a communication, but that's what I heard.
Okay. Next thing is, can I have you react? I guess you dialed into Zoom early, so can I have you react to Senator Amy Marcos saying that, to her soundbite just then, saying, di dapat magkaroon ng special session, hindi naman urgent, and also to Senate President Chief Gutierrez saying most likely it'll have to happen, I mean the trial, it'll have to happen after the SONA on July 21st.
First and foremost, I'll have to, caveat with everything I'm going to say tonight. Being a member of the prosecution team, it would be difficult for me to say anything that might be, although definitely not my intention, but it might be misinterpreted as undue influence on the Senate, given that they would soon be, hopefully, center judges. We don't want to preempt any of their leanings or biases, if any. So I have to be very careful. But with that said, and my personal opinion and a legal one as well, I think it's very clear. Prior to the soundbite that you mentioned, the president has already said that he is open to calling a special session if requested by the Senate. And the Senate president himself mentioned that if the president does indeed call a special session, then they would heed it, and it's possible that an impeachment, that the subject matter of the impeachment would be tackled on their plenary action. So I think just sticking to those two, it's still a possibility. I suppose the sound bites mentioned by both the Senate President and Senator Marcos were more of practical concerns and more of what they feel might happen.
Right, but I mean, for you guys over at the lower house, you obviously, I think this is just my assessment, but you're obviously preparing for whatever may happen, whether or not it will start during the 19th Congress or the 20th Congress. The point of the matter is there's already an 11-man prosecution panel at the lower house. Give us a sense, Kong Rodge, how are you guys preparing as early as now, just in case, no, na maituloy ito sa 19th Congress?
Yes, ma'am. Well, you're absolutely right. We are preparing. It's quite different from our in Congress, the usual functions, legislative functions. But given that all the members are members of the bar, at least some trial experience would be helpful. So we're preparing as we usually do in our profession. So understandably, over the past month, we've already had the chance to see the complaint when we were when there was consensus building. So we have a sense of where we're going with the impeachment complaint. We would be reviewing our evidence. And of course, we're going to be brushing up on the laws because, as I mentioned, this is quite different from our legislative function. So we have to brush up again. Some of our fellow prosecutors have been out of practice for quite a while. So I would imagine that's one of the things that they want to do. And I think it would be the same with everyone who would be involved in this. The last impeachment hearing that we've had was, I think, over a decade ago. So there will be a lot of preparation, not only for us at the prosecution team, but in the Secretariat and the Senate as well.
Well, I'm curious, Kong, no? What's the division of workload amongst the 11 congressmen? You did mention most of you are members of the bar, so have you decided amongst yourselves already how you will be dividing the workload for this impeachment?
Well, I understand historically, from my understanding with the previous impeachment trials, there had been a sort of division of labor. But as far as this current impeachment complaint is concerned, wala pa po. We have yet to meet, although we've convened already by plenary action, the prosecution team. We haven't had really gotten to the nitty-gritty. And I think it would just make sense that at first, we should all have a general sense of the impeachment complaint and where we want to head with that. And then perhaps the division of labor would come later on when it comes to specialization.
Okay, Conrad, sorry to just hone into something you said earlier. You said over the past month you guys have been working on the complaint because we still, I mean, obviously it's all said and done now, but I'm just curious because we didn't really have any clarity as to how that fourth complaint was drafted. Obviously, as per the Constitution, it is the majority that filed it, etc., etc. But can you tell us like how that process went? Did you guys all meet? Was it just a selected group who met and said, you know, let's pour over the three complaints, let's take the salient points and what we feel we can win on? How did that go?
Sorry, but maybe it's a little confusing. What I meant was at least the consensus building portion. Of course, we discussed the first three complaints. Not everyone was on board, but definitely this was party leaders would, of course, they were involved when the first three complaints were filed. So when they saw it and they saw it wasn't gaining traction, we have to understand that this is, like I said prior, not here, but in press con, it seems to be a long time coming. We've been having hearings. We very well understand. We've seen this whole story, the drama. It unfolded before us over the past year or so. So it for fire being complaint thoughts, individual opinions from different congressmen. So when the first complaint was filed, it forced the issue. It forced discussion. So definitely some congressmen like-minded or to an extent, I guess, like-minded, they would discuss it. And so it's not necessarily the crafting per se of the fourth complaint involved, and that's where generally, at least in my personal experience, I have an idea of where we were going with the fourth complaint.
But that's exactly the persistent criticism, which is that why wait till the 11th hour, right? As you said, there have been hearings for months. In the end, the articles of impeachment were transmitted to the Senate at 5:49 p.m., just over an hour before they adjourned for the break. Again, we've thrown this question to a lot of the other congressmen we've spoken to, but I ask you this now. Why wait till the last minute? And what was the trigger point in the end?
Yeah, well, absolutely, I agree. We might have the perception that, oh yeah, well, factually speaking, it is the last minute, no? But I don't think it was intentional, and I think there's a lot of individual considerations that a lot of factors that were taken into consideration. It wasn't one big continuous chain of events. I think there was a lot of push and pull. Understandably, there were a lot of social civic groups that approached us. Some of us were for, some of us were against. Of course, there were other congressmen who were for and vehemently against. So it wasn't really a smooth flow. I wouldn't say that this was planned. I wouldn't say that this was they waited on an 11th hour. It just unfolded that way. So I think that's all I could say on the matter.
So how did your discussions go, you know, around the issue of it being the actual last minute, factually speaking, about how this could possibly, like, what would happen to it? It could be, you know, be stuck or left with the 20th Congress. It would be divided between the 19th and 20th Congress. Did you guys, out of curiosity, discuss these things? And what was, like, the final, you know, resolution from those discussions?
Yeah, absolutely. There were a lot of factors. Some were really official, some were minor. Of course, there's the consideration, the practical consideration of if it were to be filed, which now it has been. How would this go about with the 19th Congress transitioning to the 20th? How does it go about given that we'll be doing this amidst the campaign period if the Senate does decide to take on the subject of impeachment? How would we go on given that definitely our voters, this would now be an issue-based election. No, it's very rare to say that here in the Philippines. Usually, it's personality politics, but for once, it might be an issue-based one. So there are a lot of these things to consider. But at the end, I think I can't speak for everyone, but at least for me, in my opinion, what really nagwagi po talaga yung mandato po natin sa Constitution. That would be the strongest point for those who were pro when they were pushing for this fourth complaint. They were saying, if not now, then we're failing our duty. We've seen the evidence. The first state complaints were already filed. So it really pushed the envelope, so to speak.
Kong Rodge,
Of the, yeah,
go ahead.
of the 7 articles of impeachment that was filed, and let me just enumerate for the viewers: culpable violation of the Constitution, graft and corruption, bribery, unexplained wealth, conspiracy to commit high crimes, destabilization, and betrayal of public trust. Which one are you personally most confident in, and which one do you think you have the strongest case on?
Well, I'm going to cheat your question a bit, and I'm going to choose two. Well, I think I'm very confident in the first article and the second article. The first article, definitely, because there's no escaping the fact. We've seen what is alleged. We've the whole nation saw it when she made those statements in her press con, when she made those statements before the media. So I think that would be irrefutable. Though I understand she had the subject of the impeachment had a press con. I think that was yesterday, right? And denied it. But I think the action speaks for itself. And this would now just boil down to the appreciation of the senator judges. But
So,
okay, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. And the second article, of course, is something personally that I saw unfold in the committee hearings. In the Committee on the Good Government and Public Accountability, we've seen this issue of the confidential and intelligence funds time and time again. And despite the failure or deliberate non-appearance of the resource persons, of the accused, not really accused, but of that hearing, I think we've gathered enough evidence that would point towards this to support this impeachment complaint, and especially now that it is no longer just a hearing that we're conducting in the Congress. Once this is now taken as subject matter by the Senate, as once the impeachment court is convened, then we would have the proper powers to actually pursue even more evidence. So we'd be empowered to actually file for subpoena, and there are some exemptions under the law for impeachment cases. So, yeah, I would say I guess I'd be confident in those first two articles.
to recap, Article 1 is culpable violation of the Constitution, and Article 2 is graft and corruption. With Article 2, are you referring to the 158 anomalous receipts that actually you discovered during at the height of the House hearings last year? To refresh our viewers' minds, it was the expenses, for instance, were done in 2022, but they were billed for 2023. And the OVP has explained it away as typographical errors, but the House didn't accept that reasoning, right? Are you referring to that one?
Yeah, it's referring to that. I can't speak openly about this yet. Of course, I'm sure you'd understand it. All our viewers, po,
Yeah.
pasensya pa, I'm sure they would understand that this would be an ongoing case. But all I can say is that it was much more than I thought. So, yes.
Okay.
Okay. And very quickly, you are a party list representative, and I'm guessing you're going to make another run for it. That means in just a few hours, campaign period for you, especially, starts.
Your first nominee still
Yeah,
for One
and,
Rider Party List, right?
right.
First nominee. But
Right. And unlike your other co-prosecution panel members, you are party list representative, which means you have an extra month of campaigning, but that also means a lot less time to prepare. How are you managing your time? And are you, I know you're an attorney, but are you consulting other attorneys as well?
No, in relation to the impeachment complaint, none yet. Although we have to wait for the rules if the Senate the impeachment court would allow for private prosecutors, but there are a lot of volunteers.
Volunteers. Okay.
But generally, it will be a ordeal to juggle. But I openly accept it, and I do believe that he will provide. So we'll see.
we wish you good luck. We're going to leave the conversation there for now. Still lots more to talk about. We'll invite you another time. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. One Rider Party List Representative Rodge Gutierrez.